Hey guys, so you have asked for it and we shall deliver. We are going to do a full mac tutorial and we are going to go through my process of how I do macs, French method, right here, right now. All right, so let's get started with the ingredients. Macarons, very short list of ingredients. We've got almond flour, confectioner sugar, and egg whites. For the almond flour, let's dive a little deeper. I use Costco brand, the Kirkland brand. It's the most fine that I've found, so I like it best. It makes life a lot simpler. Then we have confectioner sugar, which just get your powdered sugar anywhere. Sugar, you can do caster sugar, which is finer, but I just use granulated. And then egg whites. I feel like this is the biggest debate. There's room temp eggs or cold eggs, carton eggs or fresh eggs. I use fresh and pasteurized carton eggs. I use room temperature eggs. You can use cold eggs, lots of bakers do. But if you've been having problems with these finicky cookies, I suggest take all the safeguards, do what is highly regarded as the safer option, and go with room temp eggs. So we've got our ingredients. Now just real fast equipment and then we'll get started. With the French method, you could use a stand mixer or you can use a hand mixer. I've just got this baby out because it's less work for my arm. And then I have a bowl for sifting my ingredients in, a sieve for sifting my ingredients. I like to push my stuff through a sieve with my bowl scraper. You don't need that. You can use a whisk or a spatula. This just has the biggest surface area, so it's more efficient. So that's what I use. A nice big rubber spatula for when you do the macaronage process, and a whisk when you make your dries homogeneous. I'll go over all this. Piping bag, tips. I like to use a 9mm, but there's this 11mm I'll use too. The bigger, the less control you have if you're a little worried about your batter spilling out. So you can go with a smaller tip. Bigger is faster if you feel controlled while you pipe. For colors, you can use dried colors. Chef Rubber makes these specifically for macaron, and I love them. Specifically for Italian method, which we're not doing today, because you can mix it with your paste. I'll just say that, and then you can look that up if you're interested. And gel paste is what most French method bakers use. You just don't want to use one that has a fat in it, because once you put this gel paste into a meringue, you will ruin your meringue if there's any fat in your color. So, voila. I think we've gone over this stuff besides our scale. Digital scale is a must. You really want to be precise with your measurements. These are finicky cookies. You don't want to mess with the wet to dry ratio, so best to have another security blanket with that, and either a silicone mat or Teflon or parchment, whatever works best for your oven. You'll have to test it out. Last but not least, vinegar. I use white vinegar. Put it on a paper towel, and I just wipe clean my bowl, mixing bowl, and I wipe clean my mats. You don't want any grease left over from your last bake. Any fat residue will make lopsided macs, and we don't want that. So That was a brief overview of our equipment and our ingredients, and we are ready to start baking. So do a little dance, pat yourself on the back. You got this stuff down, let's move on. As I said, we are doing the French method. So we are going to be putting sugar in its raw form into our egg whites to form stiff peaks. And then we are going to put those that beautiful stiff peak meringue into our dries, mix it up, put it in our piping bag, which I will prepare, because we do not want our meringue to be sitting at all. We are going to be adding egg white powder into our egg whites. That's going to strengthen our meringue and to pretty much mimic an Italian meringue. It'll give us more time to fuss with our batter and get the right consistency while we're macaronaging. I love that word because I don't know if it's real. The macaronage process is what scares a lot of people. So we're gonna make sure that you are set up for success by using 3 to 4% egg white powder to your total weight of egg white liquid. So I have 125 grams egg whites in this recipe, and so I'm gonna use about 4 grams egg white powder. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, but that's gonna really help your meringue. I'm going to scale everything now, and we're gonna get going. We've got the egg whites that are fresh. I just cracked them like a half an hour ago, so they got to room temperature. And I don't know how many grams this is, and I don't need to because I'm going to finish off with my easy eggs. So if you're doing full fresh eggs, you're gonna want to crack them in a different bowl first and measure them out perfectly, but this just allows me to kind of top it off to where I need to be. We just scaled our egg whites into our bowl. Let's get the other ingredient for the meringue done, and that is the sugar. So recipe-wise, I'm using an adapted version of Indulge with Mimi, which I will link to the description of this video. So after the sugar, I'm gonna scale in my egg whites. Like I said previously, 125 grams of my liquid egg whites, so 3 to 4% of that is about 4 grams. So I'm gonna use 4 grams into my sugar. So when using egg white powder, you need to hydrate. So a lot of people put it directly into their egg whites, but I find that it clumps up a lot and gets stuck on my whisk, and even by the end of the meringue process, there are little clumps on my whisk. So what I've been doing lately, I like to mix up my egg white powder in my sugar so it doesn't clump so much. And then I will gradually pour this in to my egg whites really early into the foaming process, so it's very liquidy still, so it still hydrates these bad boys. So now let's sift our ingredients and then we can get started on that meringue. All right, so now I am scaling my almond flour and confectioner sugar. I am scaling it directly on the scale in the sieve. I do this because it's just one less bowl to dirty. You can just sift it and then do the next one, and then it's all in one bowl. I scaled to my exact grams of my recipe, and I'm just gonna bring this all through. So whatever doesn't go through, you don't really want to add it, because that's the whole reason why we're putting it through a sieve, is so nothing is bigger than these little holes, right? Because you don't want clumps. You want your shell to be shiny and smooth and not bumpy. And so that is the reason why we've got this bad boy. So I've got about, probably not even a full gram left in here that I'm just gonna toss. And then I'm going to scale my confectioner sugar or powdered sugar. Tare or zero your scales before you add your ingredients, because then you will actually know how much you're weighing. You don't have to do addition during this process, which can definitely add some flubbed up math if you're talking about me. Some people put it through a sieve twice, 3 times, 4 times a lady, but I just do it once. And then I will whisk to create a homogeneous mixture of the confectioner sugar and almond flour. Here we go. Whisking. Again, if you're using an almond flour that is not as fine as this Costco brand, the Kirkland brand, then food process it. We are going to be happy with this. You can't tell what's confectioner sugar, what's almond flour. It is one mixture and it's nice and fine. We're happy with that. All right, we are ready for the meringue. I have put my dries onto a piece of parchment, so when the meringue is done, we can move that meringue into here without the dries all being on the bottom. All right, so we're gonna start the meringue. We're gonna whip it on stir until there's these nice big white bubbles. You don't want to go too far here because I have that egg white powder in here that I need to hydrate. So I'm just going to add my sugar in 2 additions, sugar and egg white powder. Let that mix in, dissolve, and then I'll add the second batch, the second addition. That's a good word. I'm gonna stop. Put that second addition of the sugar and egg white powder in. It's nice and frothy, but it is not at all at a stiff peak. I mean, a soft peak. So I just added all of my sugar and egg white powder into the egg whites. We're whipping it at a 2 right now, just to incorporate. I'm gonna turn it up to a 6. And let it go for another 2 to 3 minutes, and then all the way up until stiff peaks at max speed. We're gonna let this go until it is stiff peaks. This is the perfect time to dance, you guys. Killing time. Everybody! All right, guys, we have reached a soft peak stage. And it's nice and shiny. We're gonna go a little farther, but I'm gonna add my color in. Okay, how to know when your meringue is done and at its stiff peaks that you're looking for. You're gonna start seeing striations in the meringue from the whisk as it's whipping. That means it's holding its shape. It's gonna clump around the whisk like so. It's gonna have these nice points. This right here is just perfect. This is what you want. You wanna move fast at this point. I mean, not like Speedy Gonzalez, like you're going to lose everything if you don't do it in this second, but you don't want it to sit around for a while. So go ahead, start mixing your dry ingredients in right away. I'm gonna add this into my bowl. It's just wider, a wider bowl, not as deep, so it's gonna be easier for me to see what the dry ingredients are doing at the bottom. If they're hanging out, I hate when they get stuck like underneath this little lump here in these bowls. So this just helps with the macaronage process. All right, so my dries are going to be put in 2 additions. Okay, there's one. I went over this in the previous video, quite in depth, but I will definitely say it again. You do not want to deflate at this point. So you just want to add these dry ingredients to the meringue, make them basically like wet, make them look like part of the meringue. They're 2 completely different consistencies, so they don't really look nice when you start adding them to each other. It looks like you're doing something incorrectly, but just keep going, trying to be gentle, not deflating, and just wetting all of those dry ingredients, incorporating them into the meringue as gently as possible. Okay, let's add the rest of the ingredients. This is not 100% incorporated. The more you mix, the less time you have later. So just get it so it's not a whole bunch of dries on the bottom. Add your last bit and then move on. All right. Still incorporating those dries and being very careful not to deflate, right? Right? Okay. So I'm just going through the batter, underneath and over, just slowly making sure things are completely mixed in and we don't have dry clumps left over. And then we'll start the macaronage process, which is the deflating process. See, I still have all those dry lumps in here. I don't want any of that before I start deflating. The reason for being super careful at this point and trying not to deflate your batter too much is just so you have more control over the final consistency. When you start with more, you have more time to get the air out, right? Here we go. All the dries are incorporated. I don't see any almond pieces or confectioner sugar. I don't see any of the dries hanging around. So right now, I am gonna start deflating. Push out the air. Again, this is called the macaronage process. It is a very critical point in the making of macarons. You want to be careful to evenly deflate your batter. If it's uneven, you will get lopsided macarons. So I like to have a method to my mixing, which is press down, around, and over. Press down, around, and over. Press down, around, and over. It helps to repeat it. I know it sounds weird, but it helps me, at least, be methodical about it to get nice, beautiful cookies that are not lopsided. So again, this is the Indulge with, it's a recipe I've adapted from Indulge with Mimi, and it really mimics the Italian meringue method because of the sugar content in that meringue. It is a high sugar content, so it makes for a stronger meringue. And that's why I've been liking this recipe. It's because the batter is really similar to when you make it, make macarons the Italian method. It's just nice and thick. All right, guys, I think we're pretty good. Every once in a while, check your batter. You want it to flow continuously off your spatula in a nice ribbon form. In the previous video, I demonstrated the figure 8. Here we go, I'll do it again. Let's see if you can see it. I'll do it one more time. Like I said last time, again, mixing a little bit less is always better because you will continue to work that batter in your piping bag while you're piping. So I'm gonna say this is good to go. And again, I have my piping tip put up so no batter is going to spill out. And I'm just going to fill this baby. If your piping bag is not this big and you cannot fit all of it at once, you can either use 2 bags to put all your batter in, or what I would do is I would just let the batter sit in the bowl, the extra batter, pipe it out, and then refill the same bag. You just have to go quick. You can't let this batter sit for too long because of that French meringue that is going to start really breaking apart as you let it sit. So try to get every last gram in this bowl. My bowl is not super pretty right now, but there we go. And we are ready to pipe. I like to use my bowl scraper, the straight side, to push up my batter so everything is nice and together. Push up that tip since it fell through. And I'm gonna prep my pans out in front of us. All right, so I've got my pans out in front of me. As you saw in the beginning, I put vinegar, white vinegar, to clear off the grease. They're nice and clean. I've got my pans upside down for better airflow in my oven, and we're ready to go. I'll talk more about that in a second. I am going to pipe straight up and down at a 90-degree angle. I'm pushing with my dominant hand, my right hand, at the top here of the piping bag. I'm pushing with that, guiding with my left hand, and then I stop pushing when I have filled up where I like to stop. Stop pushing, a little flick of the wrist so that the batter doesn't continue to pour out while you're moving. And it also make sure there isn't like a little nipple or tip or point. I guess a point is a good word. There isn't a little point at it. So I'm going to do that. I am only doing 1 batch today. So I'm gonna evenly distribute the batter between 2 pans. And that's why I'm not filling up the top row right there. When I do 2 batches, it fills up 3 trays all nicely. And I can fill up all of the silk pat without any cracking in my oven, and that's because of my trays that are upside down. So in pastry school, we would have these beautiful heavy-duty black pans that we would bake on, which were great conductors of heat, would give you those beautiful ruffled looking feet. But at last, I cannot find them anywhere, and I know they were super expensive. Oh, I just piped way too much on that one, but. So At home, what works best is just nice aluminum pans. You don't want to really mess with, just get your aluminum pans on Amazon or wherever your local bake shop is, and those will work just fine for us. Tap my trays out, then I'm gonna wait for a skin to develop, and then we will bake. So, this is a scribe. You can, let's see here. You can see from there, like there's a little bubble here, so you can pull back, let the air out, fill it in, and that way you have a nice smooth top. It takes a lot of time. Some bakers love to do this, some hate it. You can choose what method you like to do. For me, I try not to spend too much time doing this. Now that we've tapped out our trays, we just let them sit until there's a skin. Depends on your environment. My house, usually I turn the air on and it's usually ready in 10 to 15 minutes. If you have a humid environment, you will need longer. So I like to not go by time, I go more by touch. So when you touch, it will not stick to your finger. That's how you know it is ready to go. You want that skin to form, so when it's baking, it rises up and forms those pretty little feet on the bottom instead of cracking at the top, which we like to call macarons. And it also helps with them rising up evenly instead of getting lopsided. So let's let these rest. We'll check back in 15 minutes. I'm gonna turn my oven on right now and turn on my air conditioner to dry out this place. I preheat my oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I drop it down to 275 when I bake. All right, see you soon. All right, so these macarons have been resting for 15 minutes. There is a nice matte finish to them. You can touch it with your finger. It does not come off. All of them, you wanna check on the insides too where there's less airflow, because sometimes the edge ones will be fine and dry, but the middle ones that are closer to their partners, they're still wet. So make sure you check one on the inside. Nothing comes off my finger. I'm ready to bake. Macarons have to be baked one tray at a time in most ovens. And I am going to flip my tray halfway through the bake just for even baking. We have hot spots in our oven sometimes, and it is good to flip your tray. Even baking. The timer just went off halfway through. Reset my timer for 10 more minutes. And this is the moment where you see if your macs are turning out well. So far, so good. I always check my oven temperature at that time too, just to make sure it's staying true to temperature. And you guys, we're doing good. All right, the timer's about to go off. The first tray is done. Okay guys, this is the exciting part. Our macs are beautiful. We did awesome, and I just can't wait to eat them. But first, we're gonna let them cool all the way. These have cooled to where I feel comfortable touching them because I'm very excited. I want to sandwich them for you. So once they cool, you can just honestly rip them off. If you feel more comfortable, you can also lift up your mat and peel them off. Either method works. If they're done properly, they will come off nicely. If they're a tiny bit underbaked and you're having issues, pop them in the freezer real fast, 5 minutes, and they'll come off of your silk pat easier. Pro tip right there. Okay, once you have them sandwiched together, we can fill. I like to store my shells just as is in my, my freezer in an airtight container, and then fill when I have all my shells ready for the farmer's market. But if you're doing one batch, you can fill right away, pop them in your fridge, and wait 24 to 48 hours to enjoy. The reason for the waiting process or the maturation process is that your shells aren't flavored. Usually you don't want to mess with the wet to dry ratio of a macaron, so your filling is really what flavors your shell. During that 24 to 48 hours in the fridge, the filling soaks into the shell, softens it on the inside, keeps that crunchy outside, so everything marries really well together and it's delicious. I'm gonna show you my mixed berry jam and just pipe a few and sandwich them together, and we will call it a day, my friends. We have done well. I'm very excited. I hope all of these tips and tricks, whatever you want to call them, have been eye-opening. I hope that they were new and exciting, and that you're excited to start your own batch at home. Get to moving. Make sure you tag me if you guys do this on Instagram. Tag Big Toujours so I can see the results. Let me know if it's working for you, and we can troubleshoot in another episode. All right, so I have paired up all my macaron shells to a little mate that matches their size, and I'm going to show you a little bit of filling with my homemade mixed berry jam. So you just want to fill a little dollop of whatever filling you have right in the middle. For this specific flavor, I don't want the jam to be seeping out because it is a little looser than a buttercream, so I'm gonna do a little bit less. All right. That one will be our tester. And you just want to carefully sandwich together, and you've got your beautiful filled macaron. Probably shouldn't try to mess with them too much. All right, so this is the one I messed up. I'm gonna try it. I challenge you guys. This is a hard challenge because you have to eat something. So I challenge you guys to try one of your macarons right away, and then try them 24 to 48 hours after maturation and just notice the difference. Did you hear that crunch? Second tray's out. One sec. One more minute for that. The way I tell is I tap on the feet a little bit. If they move at all, I put them in for longer. If the feet are super sturdy, I'll take them out. But back to this. If you try one fresh, you notice they're a lot crunchier. After you mature them, they are going to be such a different texture. They are chewier on the inside. They still have that nice crunch outside, egg-like shell exterior. And the whole shell is gonna be flavored with that filling. And it's just delicious. All right, guys, I'm gonna finish sandwiching up these cookies, and I just wanna thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this information. I hope it was some new content in there for you to really take and apply when you make your own macarons at home. If you have more questions, please comment below, or any type of comment or feedback. We appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you like what you see, please like it as well so we can get the word out and be able to make more content that is tailored to you guys. Don't forget to follow on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and we really appreciate it. We love doing this, and we're so excited to share with you guys. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, night, whatever it may be for you, and happy Mac making. It's time sensitive, but my husband decided to brew a cup of coffee, so we'll wait. What's a transition word? Well, ooh, it's like the dance of the toro. Pasaroga. That's not
That's
it.
a city.
Dosa Roble. What is it? Pasa Doble.
There you go.
Okay. All right, let's get to it. Once you're done laughing, I'll know. I have
That's
to
a
pee.
well play.
Okay.
And a 3.
What'd you say? All right now. Oh my goodness. Okay.